It's about time to get with the program.
I can appreciate everything.
Wait a minute. Jessie, check it out. Oh my God, we're live.
Oh, are we live? Ooh.
Look at that. Well, technically, we're live. When people hear this, it won't be live.
No.
It'll be tomorrow. But right now, it's Sunday. It's October. What's today's date? October 14th. Yeah, October 14th. And welcome to the Progressive Rampage. My name is Chris Baru. I'm up in Maine. With me, as always, is Jessie Cheney.
Down in the South.
Deep down in the South. And today we have another person from Utah. Who's that Utah guy out there?
His name's Corey.
Corey, Mr. Corey Henderson. How goes it, sir?
Awesome.
Yeah, so, and for a touch of context, I just got done talking with these lovely gentlemen for about 45 minutes without hitting the record button. That's the life of amateur radio, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, sir. Oh, it happens.
But Jessie had a great topic that he wanted to dive into, and I just want to say thanks for pointing out that Joe Rogan podcast, Jess. That was a really great interview. So take it away.
Basically, what we were talking about, we'll try this again, was the weaponized outrage through social media.
Or as I like to call it, the yellow brick road of eggshells.
Yes. That's
the yellow
exactly
brick road of eggshells.
Yeah, I mean, we were discussing this, and like, honestly, I'm just going to tell people, go listen to Rogan. I mean, great interview with Roseanne Barr. And it's a perfect example of this weaponized outrage, that something that you can say, and it may not be how you intend it, is construed by others to be a different way. And then suddenly now everyone's outraged, and the next thing you know, you've got no more show.
It's the classic when you assume you make an ass out of you and me, except now people are somehow immune to becoming an ass when they're wrong.
Right. Oh, not only that. I mean, whatever happened to, okay, well, if what I said bothered you, they didn't even give her a chance to either explain or apologize or anything.
Yeah.
And it was just this and there's and like Rogan said, there's no road to redemption. I mean, if you intentionally go out to do it, then I'm sure you're going to be willing to pay whatever price there is, because that's the true freedom that we have. I can do anything I want. Law, no law, doesn't matter. I mean, I'm free to go out and rob a bank if I want to, but I got to be prepared to pay for it, right?
And you know what else is? It's almost not like you're paying for it anymore. It's like you're leasing a chance to be separated from society. But when you come back, you haven't paid your debt to society. For a lot of felons, it's really difficult. Like we don't have a justice system that is focused on recuperating people. Like in Germany, the max sentence is like 10 years or something. And the reason why is because you don't need more than 10 years to recover from the problem that caused you to break the law in the first place. Generally speaking, there are some certain circumstances, but in our society, we go to jail 20, 30 years, you come back out, you can't get a job, you're not allowed to vote anymore, you've got to check in with a CO constantly no matter what. It's as if you didn't really pay a debt to society. It's society has now martyred you for it, or has is treating you like shit for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And that is now starting to bleed into social media, the microcosm of our society, where you say something wrong, people notice it, get offended by it. Even if you apologize, it doesn't matter. Your career's done.
Yeah, and the thing that bothers me the most is thin-skinned. There's too many thin-skinned people out there with the ability to now communicate on a mass level. And the reason I say that's a problem is just because it goes with that outrage or that offense, or you offended me and now I'm going to make you pay. Okay, well, it should stay in that realm. You don't want to listen to what I say, turn off the podcast. You don't want to listen to what I say on my Facebook, stay the fuck off my page. You don't want to see what I post on Twitter, don't read what I post on Twitter. I'm not coming to your house, kicking in the door and screaming at you through a bullhorn. You know what I mean? You have avenue.
You definitely do. And I just saw that Mr. Josh Cameron has joined the podcast.
Yay.
What's up, Josh?
What's up, guys? Yeah, I was just listening. I joined in a couple minutes late. I was trying to get somewhere where I could jack into Wi-Fi where it was quiet and you guys wouldn't have to listen to me driving. And so I am here. And so I agree to Jesse's point as far as there are way too many thin-skinned people that have the ability to speak in a national capacity. That said, I find that often where a lot of the problem lies is people, their initial reaction to being attacked by this sense of I'm offended is to say, well, I didn't offend you. And so that's obviously not going to work. And whether you're right and whether you really didn't say anything all that offensive, it's important to take a step back. And I'm bad at this myself at times, and say, you know what, I didn't even think about it that way. Thank you for enlightening me. And not even say I'm sorry for offending you. You know what? Thank you for enlightening me. I didn't even think about it that way. That blows my mind. Something. And then you can follow it up with I'm really sorry that I offended you, or whatever. And then see if you have the ability, which you may not, but if you have the ability to if it is a podcast that's railing against you, saying that you said some shit, go back on that podcast and unpack it and say, you know what, I never even considered this. I may not necessarily agree with what you're saying here, but this is really interesting because this is not an organic position for me. And so I think that there are ways to where when we do accidentally stick our foot in our mouths, that we can use that same energy that's like, oh my God, look what this motherfucker said. Fuck this guy. And then use that very thing to be like, well, okay, well, let's unpack this a bit. And maybe that'll blow up in your face. And this is by no means a black and white situation. But I'm curious your guys' thoughts on that.
You know what's ironic, Josh, is that that's exactly what the Roseanne Barr reboot show was trying to accomplish. She was trying to show a family getting together and not getting along all necessarily, but then also getting along necessarily with all these different diverse subgroups that are being represented by the different characters and their kids and whatever. And Roseanne was the lone Trump supporter, and it was showing her navigation through living with these different things, but it was like in real life, not online. And then when she went and did what she did, and if you listen to the Joe Rogan podcast where he interviews her, it provides so much more context than what the news was capable of doing. It shows someone who made a comment. That comment was misconstrued, and then nobody let her have a chance to explain herself. And when she apologized more than once and profusely, it didn't matter. And this is all before advertisers pulled the plug. The plug got pulled by the executives because of what she said.
Right, and so this is to my point that I made when I popped in at the end of the last bit, hoping it recorded. Where I said that being able to know that, okay, I'm in an environment where I could offend people, much like we were talking about in the workplace, and so I need to have kind of this safe parameter for what I say when I'm in that context. Because like it or not, if you are an actor, what male or female, with this many followers, you're under the gun, and to use the word monkey and not have it like even the thought cross your mind that this could be misconstrued, to me suggests a certain amount of disingenuousness, period.
I'm going to disagree with you on that one.
But with this, and I'm interested to hear your point there, but this is also the importance of, even if it is not disingenuous, this is the importance of training your mind in these environments and trying to make yourself aware of what could blow up in your face. When is there a time that I need to jump on the grenade? When's there a time that there's a grenade and I need to frag out and scramble? And so by introducing ourselves to ideas that challenge our organic position, challenge the way that we think, it helps build that construct, if you will, for you to be able to speak from, and to help train your vernacular and your vocabulary and just your mannerisms and way of speaking to where you can say effectively the same thing without, or at least with more barriers to prevent any sort of misconstruction of this is a racial component, this is a sexist component, whatever. And so, I think some of the impetus is on us, and there are definitely mistakes that can be made. But to me, it's really hard to make the argument, and I'll have to listen to Joe Rogan podcast, but it's really hard for me to make the argument that anyone saying monkey against a black person is not fully aware of what the fuck that they're saying, no matter how tired you are. And so I get that, like,
well, Josh, you're assuming
that big of a deal, but anyway, I'll step off my soapbox on you guys.
You're making the giant assumption that they're in full possession of their faculties. See, at the time she was tweeting those things, she was on Ambien and beer, which is a combination that will render you back to your lizard brain, right?
Okay. Now, going back another point, you're automatically assuming Okay, so the problem that I have with what you just said is that is PC, and that is thought control, and that is manipulation of getting people to change how they communicate on the off chance that it may or may not offend someone.
I just said that there's
No.
way that nobody can misconstrue it as a racial component. I didn't say that she meant it as a hateful piece of shit.
No.
I just said there's no way to misconstrue. Like, it's obviously there's racial components tied to the word monkey.
She
and you
didn't
would have
put
had
the
to
word
have
monkey in the
She didn't
tweet.
use the word monkey.
She
used
didn't call
Planet
the
of
woman
the
a monkey.
Apes.
She compared her to a character on the planet.
That's right. That's right. My bad.
Right.
Yeah.
And she claimed she didn't even know that Valerie was black. And in fact, Valerie Jarrett herself went and did 23andme.com and found that she's 46% black. And if you look at her complexion, she doesn't exactly scream, "I'm a black woman." Now, that being said, I think most of us can notice features and things and make an assumption. But again, we're making an assumption. And the assumption that was made on Roseanne here was that she was coherent, that she knew exactly what she was writing down, and that what she meant by it was what all of the outraged people thought she meant by it. And if you don't give a person a chance to explain themselves and you jump to a conclusion that ruins their fucking reputation like that, which, by the way, these people are balancing on a rubber ball as stars, she's a person who fights for civil rights with a lot of the stuff she does. She donates to these things. Like, I'm telling you, people jump to a conclusion, and it's not the confusion of whether or not she called a person a monkey. She didn't do it.
So more importantly, it goes across to this. I understand completely what Josh is saying. In a civilized society, we should be able to have civil discourse. This should not jump into your looks, your race, your background, and everything else. But unfortunately, until the rest of social media starts catching up to civility, it's going to constantly be like this. But the problem that I have is the simple fact that I can use as many words as I want, different variations of the word. Instead of telling you to go fuck yourself, I can tell you to vacate my area and fornicate with yourself. A lot of people won't know what I just said, right? Well, some will, some won't. But wait. But here's my point: does it change the intention? Right?
And intention is everything. And
Exactly.
That used to be the biggest tenet of comedy back in the day. And now that is drastically changing with the way society is shifting these days.
But the problem I have is to wrap this point up so everyone understands is she's a fucking comedian. She makes jokes for a living. She thinks of stupid, silly things to make someone else laugh. We hold that comedian at a higher standard on social media than we do the great and powerful Mighty Pumpkin.
So, and that's a great point. But the thing is the great, powerful, mighty pumpkin uses his great power to insulate him. And so this is, and again, right or wrong, this is society teasing out these rules that hopefully we can start using these rules, which are they're going to overreact in certain ways, which is just simply how it works out, and then hopefully calibrate, and then it's going to eventually overreact to another way, and then hopefully calibrate. And this is what happens when we wade to weird territory that we're not used to. But the idea that she's not in control of her faculties because she's on Ambien and she's on alcohol is such horseshit to me. And so here's why it's horseshit, because I've been on Ambien and I've been on alcohol and I've been on Ambien and alcohol at the same time. I drank so much in the Army, and it helped me understand who I really was, because I could see who I was and how I acted at a core level. At a core level, I'm a pretty happy-go-lucky kind of guy.
You have a blackout, Josh?
I want the room to be happy, and because of that, I stop and I consider, what is it that I'm going to say? What am I going to say? And if somebody then says, "Dude, what you said was shitty," I go out of my way to say, "Holy shit!"
Right,
again,
but
I didn't even think of it that way.
Which is what she did.
I didn't see that really from Roseanne. Like, she should have been like live streaming the second it happened, like when she woke up and said, "My God, I had no idea. Here's the circumstances. You're right. That's super shitty to say. Taken in that way."
That's exactly what she did. That is exactly how she reacted. But the media didn't report that.
Can we put the
because
links
all they
on?
wanted to do was to fuel the fucking outrage.
Potentially. So would we like to, because I haven't seen this, so maybe you guys have seen something that I haven't. So
I follow her on Twitter. I read it all when it happened.
But did
I don't have it in front of me.
Did she just tweet and say, "I'm sorry"? This is like, she should have gone above and beyond. Again, when somebody says that
she went on TV shows, she went on talk shows. Hardly anybody would even let her on. And the
So-
ones that did let her on, she
So-
tried to defend herself and explain that she apologized for having offended everyone.
Okay,
Tried
so
to explain it.
But this is the point. Is let me rephrase that. This is another point I want to throw in there. Is she said something? She said she didn't kill a homeless man. She didn't boil a bag of puppies. She didn't write policy that's going to negatively affect 3 million children going to school. You know what I mean? In the big grand scheme of things, she said something. She didn't do something. She didn't beat someone. She didn't. You know what I mean?
On her own microblog, by the way.
Right. I mean, if you don't like what someone says, I do it all the time. I listen. I don't watch CNN anymore because 90% of the stuff they tell me or they see or that I hear, I don't like. But instead of going out and, getting outraged over it, it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't care.
Here's the thing is that I'm a medical researcher, right? So I work in medical research. When I clock out, or I'm no longer a medical researcher. I'm Josh. And for us to say, well, she's a comedian and this way, she's not at work right now. She's not at work. And if she's on the stage and she's on a show and she's on a Netflix special, yes, absolutely, I absolutely agree. If she's on stage and says some fucking horse shit, like, well, the whole point is that she's supposed to be outrageous. But and if she's going to be outrageous in regular land, the same way that I can't go into a movie theater and yell bomb, and I get that she didn't yell bomb, but I think it's on the same scale. But the fact that she's coming to us, she's coming to civilized society. She's saying, I'm Roseanne the person, not Roseanne the comedian. And if she demands that we come to her and see her as Roseanne the comedian and nothing beyond that, regardless of whether she's in, again, society as a whole or on her specific microcosm, which would be, I think, much more encapsulated either on her TV show or B on stage. And if she's going to be Roseanne the comedian, she's got to show the burden of proof that she's on set and that she's at work and that she's the comedian, not just, oh, I said some shit. And so this is where I again, and so maybe I don't know if I'm fully relaying my points well enough, and maybe I'm just clearly in the wrong. I don't know, because it seems to think that the three of you are against me. So that would make me think that maybe I'm in the wrong.
That's
but
a sad mindset to have in a discussion. It's never people against each other. It's people's ideas.
Well, you know what I mean. Like you guys. That's a fair point.
See, the problem that I have
intellectually argumentative.
Yeah. But the problem that I have with your train of thought is that in the long run, you are training people to be disingenuous in how they communicate. I don't agree with that.
We're already there.
And I would much rather have a politician, whether they're a Democrat or Republican. I don't care. I would much rather have that person who's racist, ignorant, and just a flat out piece of shit. At least have the ability to come out and personally say, I'm a racist, you know what I mean? Through their actions and their words. Because then they can't hide. That's my point. So this language training of don't say this because it could offend people, or be careful how you word things because you could offend people, that's not on me. That's on the people that get offended.
All
you
right.
don't like what I say, that's fine. But at least have the mental and thick skin.
The nobility. Have the nobility to say this is who I am.
Exactly. I mean, I can be a very offensive person. 90% of the time, I'm not. I don't try to offend people unless I really don't like you. And if I don't like you, I don't care. And if I don't care, I'm going to say whatever I want to say, whether it offends you or not.
Right. Yeah.
And so what's the problem?
I'm pretty good about just shooting from the hip and saying how I feel. And this is where I've lived. I've spent the last 10 years or so just really trying to understand. I think I even wrote on a Speak Our Voice, but ultimately trying to understand the inner workings of my brain. Even if you have zero interest in changing who you are, understand where you end and you begin. So that way, when you decide that you want to put your hands back on the wheel, then you can start driving around a bit. And so that way you know exactly how to change your trajectory. You know exactly who you are. So that way when you do decide to change, you have a kind of this is where I start, and so I can feel myself influencing this argument or influencing my bias here. And but we create blind spots, just like any driving area. And so this could be a blind spot for me because of what I'm going through with Mia Love. But tell me if this doesn't fall within kind of the same realm. with Mia Love, I'm trying to use her own voice. In this case, these people have used Roseanne's voice. But I'm trying to use her own voice or her own actions or those around her to use it against her, in the sense of, I'm this combat vet. I show up to her rally. A minute of me showing up, I have an American flag. I'm told by Lehigh City Police in Utah County to get off the property if I'm going to fly a flag. Never told me why. He just said that I need to leave the property because they think they think I'm a protester. So basically, they came out and said that they want to take away my my freedom of peaceful assembly. So they think I'm a protester, and I was out there talking. I put my flag away, go in. When they kick me out, even though I have a ticket to get in, then they cite me for criminal trespass. And so I'm trying to use her own actions. In this way, these people use Roseanne's own words. Granted, it may be misconstrued on their end because it's a two-dimensional construct is what text is, whereas I'm in a three-dimensional world with Mia Love. But I feel like using their own words and putting it up to light and saying, what is more likely? A racist saying racist shit when they're drunk and they're on Ambien, or somebody who isn't racist to think something that could be pretty flagrantly racist and just happen to say it innocent. The likelihood of it, just for me.
I have to tell you, Josh, the way I see your situation with Mia Love is that you are the Roseanne Barr in that situation, and Mia Love and her goons are the outraged social media people who won't give a chance to a person expressing their freedom of speech to fully express themselves before they decide to condemn that person for what they perceived they said as something that's bad and ought to be culled from society. That's how I see those two situations being alike, not the other way around.
And so that's a wonderful parallel. And so I'm Roseanne now. But
trying to say something and people are misconstruing it as bad, and so they're shutting you down without you getting a chance to fully express and explain yourself. And now you find you're in a court.
But here we are in the post game, and so we're post game. Roseanne said her shit, and her post game just tanked. My post game is I'm starting to get a little bit more traction. I had the City Weekly give me a call. They're going to call my lawyer on Monday. I might have. I'm trying to get the attention of the Salt Lake Tribune, where they, posted my op-ed, and the other local media. I've reached out to a bunch of people. I'd love to get Jimmy Dore, Ron Placone, Graham Elwood. I've been on Graham's show last year, but these guys are busy. They're always on the road, and so it's hard to get their attention. So I think that the trajectory, I'm going up where she's going down. Granted, she basically only had somewhere to go down because she's, so popular. But I see that under the scrutiny of light, Mia Love is clearly in the wrong. And under the scrutiny of right,
totally.
And under the scrutiny of light, it's hard to say with Roseanne. And
So let me just interject something right here, okay?
Yep.
You work in the medical industry. You understand all of that stuff. Okay, so let's try it this way. Okay, would you be more concerned with someone walking in with a splinter in their finger that's infected or sucking chest wound?
Well, that's triage, right? So
right.
Obviously, they're sucking chest wound.
Okay, so now the reason I'm throwing it out there in that term is a simple fact is Roseanne Barr has a TV show, and yes, she's politically involved in certain aspects and everything else, but she is not a politician in the situation where you're at. And where you're at is that person has the potential to negatively affect a lot of people with her deeds, her actions, her attitudes, her way that she votes, the way that she thinks, the typical corrupt politician aspect of that equation. So in the bigger scheme of things, I agree with you 100%. What she says, Mia Love, what she says should be analyzed and gone through with a fine-tooth comb and be like, okay, well, what did you mean when you posted this? And what did you mean when you voted this way? What, you know what I mean? That person has the ability to negatively affect everyone around her for a very long time through laws and her voting, right? To pass laws or to, that's my point. She's a bigger fish than Roseanne would be. And I get that. I'm just using Roseanne as just because if people really want, that's a good example. But that should be, yeah, exactly. But that should be how everyone should view a lot of people. There's people on YouTube that say stupid shit all the time. I don't think they should be taken off. There are people that say stupid shit on Facebook all the time. It doesn't mean they should be taken off. But the people that we should hold more accountable can say all the stupid shit they want and nothing ever happens.
Especially like white supremacist groups, anybody who's a political party that's just openly fucking racist or bigoted, like
then be
all
openly
those groups
racist.
still exist, and I don't understand why, because they filed paperwork, so they're allowed to have.
This ultimately, right or wrong, is effectively the intellectual version of a market response, right? So she does something that influences marketplace of ideas.
Yeah.
People lose their fucking mind, and so. But now we have the ability to, there can be a market response to that response, which is people rallying around the idea. If Roseanne really is in the right, which I'm still very skeptical, but you can have the market response to punish the companies that dropped her for no fucking reason.
That's true.
If that's where you truly feel. To
be fair and transparent, though, the audience needs to know that Jessie and I both listened to Roseanne Barr for like an hour and a half on a Joe Rogan Experience podcast, number 1184, and I don't believe Josh did. So
no, I have not.
He's still working with the perspective of not having actually heard her out completely. So with that in mind, that would explain some of the little differential that we're running into here.
Yes, and so that's a great thing to point out, because I definitely am running on sans evidence that you guys have. And so this may be my biggest blind spot, may be that it's hard for me to give a fuck that a rich person is losing fans, and maybe this is a wrong thing because she's still a person, but I don't really give a fuck that a rich person is losing their followers and losing her show when we have record income, like the disparity since the robber barons.
I'm with you on that one. I'm not crying for her not putting food in her mouth or something.
And so I like the intellectual idea, and we really should use these thought experiments to help us understand how we want to be as a society. But we've got in America, there are 11 empty houses to each homeless person in this land. And so these are big blind. So this could be my biggest blind spot. Is it's hard for me to give a fuck.
See, inadvertently, you're actually making what my ultimate point to this whole matter is. My ultimate point to this is if you're going to be outraged over what a fucking comedian says, like you said, there are 11 empty homes for.
Right.
How many vets now are coming back with either PTSD, they can't get treated? You know what I mean? There's bigger shit to be outraged about than like someone said a racist remark.
All of that energy is being focused in the wrong direction, possibly because there are bigger fish to fry.
Exactly.
So
be outraged.
All of that social media culling of people's ideas and opinions and words that they get to use and can't use, and take that energy and focus it on putting those homeless people into those fucking houses and feeding those kids who are dying in the street. Yeah. Why aren't we doing that?
With that idea and using social media for good, what do you think about Taylor Swift?
What did Taylor Swift do?
Oh, God.
Taylor Swift came out and she endorsed the Democrats. And
did she pull a blue no matter who?
No. So the thing is, if you look and see the garbage fires that the Republicans are, like, and so even a Joe Manchin is better than these people.
No, not considering the way he votes with them.
I know, and so this is why it's so, like, even saying Joe Manchin's voice like makes me kind of throw up in my mouth a little bit, or saying his name rather. But the thing is these are like super fundamentalist Christian right-wing extremists, and so that's what I mean. Like, they're clearly right of Joe Manchin, and as gross as he is, as terrible as he is, like, these are terrible people. I haven't even looked up who the Democrats are. But I wish I could remember the names. Does anyone have access to a computer right now? Let me look them up.
Well, Josh, you should also be aware, and it's been pointed out by Dor and a couple other pundits out there and researchers, that several, I think it's maybe 30, I could be wrong on that number, but 30 of the people running for different offices on the Democratic ticket that are endorsed by the DNC are former CIA agents.
Yeah. Oh, dude, and that scares the shit
NSA
out of me.
So, in those races, can you seriously say that the Democrat's going to be a better option? I don't know. Maybe you're just kind of fucked, and maybe you should vote third party so they can get bigger numbers.
Oh, I'm absolutely that way. Yes, yeah. So if that's the question that we're asking is, who should you vote for? Then I would definitely say if you're a shit sandwich or just a shit in the shoebox, I go third party.
Pick the one that's not going to shoot you in the head.
You're using pundits as being garbage fire when the whole system's a massive garbage fire. So I mean, again, it's all about perspective, right?
But there's some people. So my stepdad used to be a firefighter, and he was like chief of firefighting in his house, and he he was telling me that there are certain fires that they get supermassive, supermassive heated gas or whatever at the ceiling, and so you actually spray up there first, and then it creates the mist, and the mist is what then it expunges this fire. So you don't shoot at the ground, because the shooting at the ground is actually the most inefficient. So when you shoot it up into the air, it turns it all into mist, and then you're covering a much vaster area, and so you're adding liquid gas to gas, and so. And I thought that was really quite an interesting point. And so I think that these are things that we can use to be part of that cure to this garbage fire that you mentioned, that is the system, Jesse. And so how do you join a system to where you are going to be somewhat effective? Well, what are you spraying at the ground, or are you shooting up and getting that supermassive heated gas? And so, as much as I'm disappointed in people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I still think that she's still shooting up there in that supermassive heated gas, and she's really added to this intellectual idea that we can talk about socialism and not have a red scare, and we can talk about not going to war for another we're at almost 240 years straight at war. Something like that.
And like her or not, she is having a positive effect on the conversation. If it's because that you want to point out that she's not leaning left enough, then by all means say so.
Yeah.
If it's because she's actually pointing leftist, or at least more democratically socialist ideals, whenever people on the right are commenting, or people who are Democrats who are on the right that are commenting, then by God, I'm applauding everything that she's doing. You know what I'm saying? It's just when we mentioned her before, the fear is that in her language shifting, because she doesn't want to get in that trap that definitely not what Roseanne landed in, unless she goes and takes Ambien and drinks beer, possibly. But certainly she doesn't want to fall into that trap that a lot of politicians can, where they fizzle out because they made one comment. And so it seems like she's calling her language so she doesn't get shot before she ends up in the chair,
And that's interesting. That's actually a really good point. I am quite interested to see how she is going to play out, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, and see what sort of policy she's going to champion. But this is ultimately what we need politicians to do. Often we ask, what are you going to do? And we say, what policy are you going to pass? And then they say, well, I want to do this, this, that, or the other. I want to, free college education at the point of admission, or Medicare for all. But then they get laughed at and saying, well, you're going to need to get a couple hundred more people to work on that with you.
Right.
And so the question we should be asking is, what policy ideas are you willing to champion, right? Because if we can get the marketplace of ideas that are screaming for Medicare for all, which I think about 70% of the population is at right now, we can get more people willing to actually run for office to push for these things.
Yeah.
And so I think that when we
so why don't they just put it on the ballot?
Yeah.
Like you said, if 70% of the Americans want something, why don't they just put it on an open ballot and have everyone vote on it?
Yeah.
Why not?
That's true.
Isn't that how democracy is supposed to work?
Well, and unfortunately for that, we're in a representative democracy, a republic. And
we're only in a republic because we allowed them to do it.
Of course. And to the point that you made in a previous episode, and I know that's exactly where your brain is going, I agree with you, Jesse. I think that because of technology, we should start taking a really hard look at the way the Constitution exists as it is in the first place. Because I saw a really funny meme. It was a picture of Andrew Jackson or one of those guys, and it said he just walks out of a time capsule and he goes, "You mean to tell me you guys didn't change that yet?"
Yeah.
He's like, "You guys didn't rewrite this already? Holy shit!"
That's one thing that maybe we can do on a future show, is have Corey come in and do Nerd 3.0, and let's see what he, as a nerd of that industry, could possibly even come up with. I mean, the thing that gets me is Josh. I don't think Josh was here for the last time we talked about that. Is why are we distilling 500, 600,000 people and distilling it down into 1 or 2 people or 3 or 4 people that can then be bought or corrupted, or you know what I mean? I mean, we're at that technological point in time where we can all connect through Facebook. We're doing this across how many miles? And you're telling me that yet, no, we can't do this on a larger scale when it comes to our democracy. We must still have, one representative to represent 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 people. Well, that one representative is going to be doing whatever the fuck he wants.
I guess maybe we could come up with a hybrid system where we have these representatives who get to unpack different important talking points, to use a vernacular that Josh loves.
Right.
And we could also, on the bigger issues where it requires a vote, like yes or no on releasing documentation that explains how we're being surveyed on. Well, I don't want only 52 dudes in a room that call themselves some kind of a gang making that choice for me. Right. I think that should go to the people. So maybe we need to, I don't know, and this is such a utopia kind of a thought, but what if we could have both? And why the fuck can't we have both? Why can't we get rid of the Electoral College altogether? And why can't we also have a countrywide vote, right, online, have it like a vote, like we do the polls on Twitter, right? Have the thing open for like a week, have the news, since they are the propaganda wing of the government anyway, come out and say, by the way, everybody, every single night there's a vote that's on right now. In fact, that would make the news even more productive, wouldn't it? Because then they'd start talking about the issues that we get to actually have a say in. They would. I mean,
the thing is like I said, I'm getting sick and tired. I'm seeing statistics now that, I mean, the deficit under Trump is supposed to be hitting a fucking huge number.
We're at like 900 billion right now.
Right, yeah, but the thing is they're going to tell me that they're going to continue to take taxes from me, take money out of my mouth, out of my kids' mouth, so that they could give some jackass another $800 billion for the war effort. Who are we fighting? No. Let's do Space Force.
And along Space Force, yes. Along those lines, who really is at fault here? I wonder. There are often times that if I see some kid go up and punch another kid, and then it happens again, and then it happens again, and it happens again. Like, who's at fault? Is it the kid that's punching? And yes, of course, there's fault there. Or the ones who let him get away with it, whether it's a teacher or whether it's a parent.
No, you're bringing children. As adults, it's our job to teach him.
Yes, and it is our job to teach them. But who's really at fault at the philosophical level, as far of that who does the evil, or that who allows the evil to happen? In much the same way that we've got Democrats like Joe Manchin, we mentioned. This is a guy who voted for Kavanaugh, right? And so this is a guy who voted for Gorsuch. And so who's really at fault? The enablers?
And he is technically a lesser evil. And that actually explains totally the perfect lesser evil voting is, as long as you keep voting for the lesser evil, you're always still voting for evil.
Yep. By the way, Marsha Blackburn is actually the person that Taylor Swift was like, vote for her opponent.
Oh, okay.
Marsha Blackburn's a terrible human being.
Really?
Yeah. So again, Christian fundamentalist, Tea Party. I'm going to take all your.
I'm getting to the point where I'm going to start putting out a call for revolution on the simple prospect of just, we got to separate religion out of money and religion out of politics. I don't care what you believe in. I believe that Batman was a better fucking superhero than Jesus Christ will ever be. He had gadgets and shit.
I believe money is religion. And on that note, we're going to have to go ahead and take a break. And this time it's for reals because I hit the record button. And when we come back, we will try to finish lasering and unpacking all of these things. Stay with us, folks. Talk in a second.
We have a website, ProgRamPage.com. We have a website, ProgRamPage.com. We have a website, ProgRamPage.com.
All right, we're back. Jeez. So, I don't know. Like I said, to me, it's just it's dangerous waters because it's infringing on people's free speech.
I honestly think I think, Jessie, that you and I agree on the concept of free speech, and there's Mr. Josh, and I think Josh has a little different opinion from ours. I don't think that we're that far off from each other, but I think for me anyway, and again, could be wrong, my opinion here, but I think it's a good thing to have people who can say stuff that offends me. And I think it's a good thing to have evil exist, at least in a small amount, in a controlled level possibly, but obviously chaos is never going to be controlled. But I think that without the negative, the positive isn't even witnessed. And if you look at the symbol of yin yang, if you look into any religion as far as like how it describes how a people look at the world, it's inevitably going to paint a picture of there is good and there is evil and there's a struggle, and that's what life is. And if you can't handle the struggle anymore, well, then find some other struggle where you can handle, right? Like Josh said, just try to tread water in the space that you're in for that moment. But to be honest, if we're going to fix everyone's language and end all comments that make people feel uncomfortable, then I don't know that that's a world that you really want to function in. I don't even know if that's even a possibility. I just think it's become gigantic now. What do you think?
No. But I look at it this way. It's before, let's try it this way. The tolerance of our offense has gotten to the point where there is no more tolerance anymore. It's just everything is, oh, I'm offended. I did this. Oh, someone said that. I don't like that. I'm offended. I mean, back in the day, if you were flat out racist, your speech would offend people. You know what I mean?
Could it be having been brought up in a patriarchy where tolerance is actually the silent acceptance of oppression, you could say? And that since we were brought up in that, to even consider the idea of people not tolerating anything that makes them feel bad is just batshit crazy to us, because we don't know another world that could exist without that.
I think that's going to be part of it. I definitely think that stands to reason, because we just know that thought is shaped by those around us. But I think that also a lot of our offense comes from the fact that we really are living from moment to moment, paycheck to paycheck, and you really don't have the time to catch your breath. If you can't catch your breath, your thoughts are real erratic. And since because we have such horrible healthcare, because people are working so many jobs, because people are so busy, we haven't been able to catch our breath. And so I think that's another reason why we're so easily exasperated. But there's a quote that I really like. And I think that hopefully this will help lead us into this space of how do we best help the working class. But it says enlightenment is a destructive process. It has nothing to do with becoming better or being happier. Enlightenment is the crumbling away of untruth. It's seeing through the facade of pretense. It's the complete eradication of everything we imagine to be true. And so, because I really like this quote, I try to think a little bit more along those lines when I look at social media. And so when things are blown up, it's really interesting to watch. And while I obviously will form an opinion, I find it much more fascinating as well, just to kind of sit back and watch and see it unfold, like this Roseanne case that we've been talking about for an hour now. It's super interesting seeing how the society erupts. But I think that ultimately we need to look into these Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I think that because we're not meeting these needs, and maybe there's a more evolved version of this that I'm not familiar with. But the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
See, now I'm kind of agreeing with that point for the simple fact, because the other thing that I was thinking about is, because people have been outraged at what our quote unquote leaders have said and nothing happens. No matter how outraged you get, nothing ever changes with that party. It's almost like a transference of, well, I can't get Trump out of office, and the 900,000 other people who agree with me can't get him out. But I don't like what this person said. I'm going to make that person a target of all of it now. And that's why I'm wondering if that's what's going on.
Bully people around you.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you're abused at home, you turn around and bully people around you. That's what kids do. That's what adults do. And so we're bullied. We're bullied in our political arena, and so we have to bully in our social arena. And I think that's really thanks for helping me flesh out that idea, Jesse. That's actually a great point. And I love soundboarding off of you guys. And so I think that if we can help shore up these living issues, this ability to educate ourselves beyond the now and into the future in a way that helps us, whether it be sustainable energy, even though Ben Shapiro will say that there's no such thing as sustainable energy or renewable energy. That's right. He said there's no such thing as renewable energy because look at thermodynamics. Trying to look like this fucking intellectual dumbass because renewable energy is something that's just saying that we can regrow it, not we're going to take that energy and keep it the same. We don't have infinity stones. And so these pseudo intellectuals that really get on my nerves.
But at the same time, how far?
Ultimately, I think. Go ahead.
At the same point, if we would have, I often toy with the idea of time machine and technology. How much farther ahead of us technology would we be if you had taken what we've got now, this little smartphone, and you take it back 100 years and show them, hey, look, this is new technology. This is how you make it. This is how you use it. What if we built the infrastructure for all of this 100 years ago? How far more advanced would we be now?
Well, actually, in the science world, there is a point where you can't actually bring two heated components closer together. I know a little bit about this because my dad worked in microchip technology stuff back in the day, and he said there was a point where cell phones really aren't going to get much thinner or smaller. The stuff that you see in the hands of Tony Stark in those movies, not the latest one where he seems to have gone retro with a flip phone, but in the earlier ones where he had kind of a see-through cell phone and it looked like an iPhone but without a body and just the glass, that's practically where it could end up, but no further than that, simply because of their thermodynamics, not to bring up Shapiro again.
But my ultimate point is this is
we're at the end of it is honestly what I'm trying to say to you, Jesse. I don't think Star Trek may actually have to stay theoretical until we make another leap.
Unless we turn around and stop focusing on bullshit and letting your opinions based off of whatever your political belief is or whatever your religious belief is a step in front of science.
Well, there you go.
Medically, how far would we be if in the 60s? No. So, medically, how far would we be if in the 70s, when they figured out stem cells could be used for a lot of stuff, but it was blocked because of religious beliefs?
Yeah.
So I like where your head's at, Jesse, and I think that you could actually, if you had a time machine, you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't create a religion around that iPhone. And so what you do is you create a religion for 25 years or 30 years, see how it plays out, and get a lot of people going about this thing that's going to exist. And then you bring it into existence. And then you get people buying into this idea that this iPhone is their life. And so you've already bought into their religion. You've hijacked that part of the brain that needs a religion. And then you actually gave it something to interact with. And then you transcend faith into evidence, but then you still use the word faith. So then all of your religious people really still tie in. So, yeah, if you use a time machine, you could do horrid shit.
Hello,
you just
Matrix.
Religion and just start, oh, my gosh. But you really would do yourself a disservice by not creating that religion. If ultimately your point is to rule the people, like, you may as well spend the time to do that. That's a shitty thing to say because I don't believe in that kind of ruling. But if we're thinking on D&D terms and we're talking about evil, unlawful evil or whatever, I think this is shit they would do.
Maybe Jess will be a benevolent king.
But see, that's the thing is I would not do any of that. It's just a thought process. If we can take all the political and religious bullshit out of the human consciousness and just focus on things that we can prove. I can prove gravity. I can prove thermodynamics. I can prove air currents. Things that we can prove. Touch, feel, taste, see, all of that. And granted, I know there's science that deals with, the microscopic things that we can't see. I mean, I get all that. But there's still room to sit here and say, if we took and replaced religion and politics with science, how much better off would we be? That's my point. It's religion and it's politics that fucks us as a society. It fucks us as a people.
Well,
because I think that religion
is the religion of the economy.
Politics
is
just
to get deep here.
Yeah, I know. Politics is just how I don't look at it that way. I look at it this way: is politicians are basically lazy fuckers who don't want to be a hunter, who don't want to be a gatherer, and who don't want to be the shaman. But they want to just sit here and say, but I don't want to do any of that hard stuff. So Vote for me. I'll make your life better, even though we both know once I get into office, I'm going to take as much money as I can take and screw as many hookers as I can screw, and you guys can all go fuck yourself once you vote yes on that ballot. And that's what it is.
Well, and again, when I said who's really at fault, is it the rabid dog behind the fence and the person that comes and opens that gate? What makes us so susceptible to hijacking from religion? Again, I would say, and maybe this is a reach, but I would say it's because we don't have this basic ability to have our basic needs met. And if you don't get your basic need, like sleep, you don't have that met, the next day you can be quite erratic. You can be quite much more irrational. And if you extrapolate that through how just exhausted you are when you can't pay your bills, you have a mountain of debt, you're in a soulless, soul-sucking job. And so we've created these terrible environments for people and expect them just to deal with it. And then add to that, we have American exceptionalism that was predicated on what you guys are talking about, science and space research. And space research, when we actually do that, it trickles down to the economy something like 2 orders of magnitude. And so we have evidence to show that when we research science, it actually advances us into the future. It actually gives us really awesome new toys. If we are going to find that Tony Stark phone, it's going to happen because of science research. And so there's a lot of really good things that can happen when you get a good night's sleep. There's a lot of really good things that can happen. I argue that when you have your basic needs met and you are paid a living wage and you are paid enough to be able to save as well, because there's a difference between a living wage and a retirement wage, right?
Exactly. But why aren't we there? We're not there because we live in a quote-unquote capitalist society that says, oh, only the top 1% get what you just said. Trump's not waking up trying to figure out where he's going to get his next meal from.
Right. Well,
right? Why do we put the
This is where the cronyism. Yeah,
Exactly.
This is where the cronyism comes in, and this is where I think that libertarians have a leg up, where they want to kind of disempower the money in politics.
Yeah.
Not necessarily Koch brother libertarians, of course, but there's a guy running here in Utah by the name of Craig Bowden. He's running against Mitt Romney and Jenny Wilson, which you'll never hear his name said because he's a libertarian candidate. But he talks about how he doesn't like the influence of money in politics, and himself would limit what sort of power that would even have in his office. I want to say he said that he'd completely reject it. But it's interesting where there's intersections of our lives that we can come together with people who disagree with us, whether it be Roseanne, whether it be me, or whatever, and we can figure out what benefit we can get from these thought experiments of their ideas chewing on with our ideas, and see how we can really add better to freaking society. Because as it is now, we are much more interested in being right than doing right.
Sometimes I think, I don't know, and it's probably a chicken and an egg thing, but I think that social media and our ability to chit-chat with everyone across the planet as openly as we can came a little too early. Or perhaps there is no point in time where we're going to be more tolerant of each other's very, very drastically different behavior and views on the world. Exactly. Now, what it's being used as, the people who own the companies, Facebook, Google ultimately, and Instagram and Twitter, they're working with the government, and they're also working to call our speech. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to know when we're going to stop drawing the line of saying, if you don't follow the terms of service, just go ahead and get off the internet. Guess what, man?
You don't own the internet.
Don't have a life without the goddamn internet.
Well,
and to be honest, it really just looks like they've taken over, right? The neo.
Yeah, if they own it digitally, they can say and do whatever they want. They can do your terms of service. You can do that until someone else comes along and says, okay, well, here you go. I just made a clone, same technology, same idea, same rough interface user ability. There you go. Have at it. Say whatever you want. Do whatever you want. But don't come crying and whining to me when you get offended because someone said a racial remark or someone said a sexual remark. You want freedom. This is the price of freedom.
This is the froth at the top of a boiling pot.
Exactly.
Where we decided to make a soup out of corporation and
Jessie,
government.
I've got what? Bad attitude, poor hygiene.
Standards.
Uh-oh.
You've got kids.
Yep.
I think for me, this is just one of those things. If you wait until you're ready for social media, you'll never be ready.
Yeah, exactly. But I also taught my kids that you better be careful what you put on the internet because that stuff never goes away. You want to put your ass on the internet, well, 10 years from now, someone will be, hey, remember when you were 12 and you put your ass on the internet? I got a picture. You know what I mean? But at the same time, that's not a new concept. See, back when I was young, that was called having friends. You couldn't do something stupid in my group of friends without it coming back to bite you in the ass a month later, 2 months later. Hell, I talked to a friend of mine I hadn't talked to in 10 years. Yeah, remember when you were 13 and you thought you could put your head through the locker? Yeah, I just don't have it on video, and I just don't have it on audio, and it's not something that's on YouTube that everyone can view.
Right.
Until, imagine if they had came up with a neural interface that allowed you to project your memories on the screen. Okay, I'm fucked in because I know a lot of people that didn't forget half the shit that I did. Same thing, same consequences, except it's just different with the technology.
I'm just wondering why we can't get to a level where we accept it or reject it, but we don't have to actually affect the individual that's pissed us off.
So since you mentioned kids,
hate what I say, and you can hate me for what I say, and you can never want to talk to me again, and you can, boycott my stuff and all that. But why then is it cool for you to go get like 10,000 of your friends to do the same thing and just take someone's livelihood away because you don't like what they said? So that's the demon of social media that we need to be attacking here. That should not be happening.
No, you should not be able to negatively affect someone's. If it doesn't work for the highest of us, it shouldn't work for the lowest of us.
Without some kind of
where I fundamentally disagree.
Trial or something, right? Like I'm saying, jumping to conclusions. I'm not saying that if you get like 10,000 of your friends to boycott Nestle because they're stealing water from municipal sources in order to, and they're using slave labor or something like that. That's something that then you can go prove, and then everybody can say, we're not okay with that until you change your behavior. They're not going to Nestle and saying, you're not a company any longer because you said, water is not free for everybody. But that's what the guy said.
So what is celebrity? Like, let's define terms here. What is celebrity? I would say that it's effectively, some amount of popularity that you control, right? And popularity is social awareness, I guess. So certain amount of social awareness, right? Wouldn't you say that is a decent definition of celebrity?
We'll go with that, sure.
Maybe, but that puts onus on the celebrity so much as you can become a celebrity because you produced something that other people like to a level where they want to know what you're going to do.
And that's their awareness. So it's a certain amount of awareness that you command from people. And so that awareness is effectively what social media is too. The likes, the people that follow you, you command a certain amount of awareness. And now they're putting their awareness versus this awareness. And so I see that celebrities putting their awareness up against this, and they fall and crash and burn. I don't give a fuck. It's hard for me to care. Like I think these are important conversations to have, because of the fact that they help us understand at a higher level something that we will never fully experience, and help us pontificate and help us really stretch the limits of our desire and philosophical need to live a better life or improve upon oneself or whatever. It's that kind of idea of perfection that you aspire to but you never reach, so you think these things that likely would never happen to you to kind of help guide and shape your life.
Well, that's just the thing, though. I think that the only thing about a celebrity that will likely never happen is to live with that wealth and fame. However, when people choose to attack people for their speech, it doesn't matter if they're a celebrity or a regular Joe. You can have your whole life destroyed if it's based on whether or not people what you say and don't say on social media. And actually, and I wish Mr. Henderson was still with us, but he had to leave. But even in his corporate world, quite literally, if his credit score drops too far, he loses his job, or at least it becomes in jeopardy. If he goes on social media and says, I don't like my neighbor, and then someone finds out that his neighbor is black, it could be misconstrued that he doesn't like his neighbor because he's black. And without asking Corey, all of a sudden his boss wants to know why he's hired a racist.
And that's a great point. That's a great point.
And so he's not a celebrity. Nobody knows. I mean, some people know who he is, but not as many as, say, Roseanne Barr. And so I'm not really, I don't give a fuck if all the celebrities tomorrow lost all their money. In fact, if we flipped it like Cuba, come at me, garusidub@hotmail.com. But fuck it, like, take all their money away. Whatever. Screw those people. All they do is produce art. I produce art. I don't have all that cash. If I did all that cash, I'd do something about it. Instead of asking other people to donate money to change the world, I'd just cut my cash level in half and go actually do it. I mean, Bezos can feed everybody for the next 40 years or some shit, right? So anyway, fuck the celebrities. What I'm talking about.
That's the answer I've always been looking for.
All I'm talking about here is the way that they're getting treated is like practice for the rest of us to get treated in the same.
Yes, and the biggest.
Yeah.
This is what
fair enough. And
this is what my problem is.
The answer I'm always. All right, go ahead.
Okay, this is what my problem is. If you're willing to take down a comedian, whoever, a celebrity for what they say, my thing is use that force that you now and that power you now fucking wield because you're mightily outraged, and apply it somewhere where it's more important and be more effective with it.
Yeah, so that's a great point as well. Now, to Chris's previous point about taking the money, the answer I'm always looking for, and the one that I would likely give if somebody said, what would you do if you're president for a day? And I would blow people's minds, and they might get scared of me, is just that, I would write an executive order in the Oval Office that's on obviously national television, and as it's writing that I'm going to take these bankers' money. I already have the CIA that's already taken the money, and so I've already sent out these black ops and taken their money and taken money from ExxonMobil, and that has known for 40 years that their terrible business practice adds to climate change, and then they're going to stick us with the bill. Take away from the banks that crash the economy, and that in the current capitalist system that we have, it requires resets, and it requires these depressions and
quantitative easing, right? We do QEs all the time, and that's what Jill Stein was fighting for, right? She wanted to do a QE3 and eliminate college debt, right?
Yeah, and that's not an unreasonable request. And never let us forget that often we see that there is a quote-unquote two-party system, that somehow the Democrats are the cure to Republicans and Republicans are the cure to Democrats. Never let us forget that the very people that said that Trump is a maniac for a year and a half, when he said, hey, by the way, I need $58 billion, they said, how about 80?
And he also said, hey, can I give $110 billion to the Saudis so they'll spend it on Raytheon and other companies in our place? And everybody signed off on that too. And now here we are with Saudi Arabia likely murdering a fucking journalist, right? And Trump's like, well, I don't know. We got $110 billion coming to us if we don't put sanctions on them, so maybe we shouldn't start World War.
No. Wait. You're using words like us and we.
He represents us and we.
No, he doesn't, because if you put that to a vote on a national level, ain't no one gonna vote.
Of course not. He irresponsibly does not represent the will of the people. However, every action he takes is on our
affects us. Exactly. So it's kind of funny how I don't see him spending his fucking billions of dollars on this shit. No, he's spending our billions of dollars as taxpayers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If I had a choice to say, if I had a choice as a voter, and they put it to the vote and say, okay, well, the next military budget, we can either do $800 billion or $80 billion. I'm going to vote the $80 billion. And the other $780 or $720 billion, I'd much rather see that put into, I don't know, shit that's going to affect me and everyone else that's paying for this shit to begin with. Lower your taxes, free healthcare, kids go to school for free all the way through fucking college. Hunger is no more. Vets are taken care of, like contractually they should have been taken care of, which they fucking signed up papers for. That's $780 billion. Just 1 year of that could have fixed everything we just talked about.
And that exactly explains how actions speak louder than words. And that kind of made me just have this thought that we, instead of ridiculing politicians for the words that they're using, which is a nice indicator of whether or not they've been speaking to different parties that they don't want you to know about. But let's start inspecting their fucking actions, and not just the way that they vote. Let's start looking at the way that they chose not to add something to a bill, or the pork politic nonsense that they did add to a bill and then then they say, well, we got to sign this because we need some kind of thing to move forward. And, oh, there's something in there for, the state of West Virginia to be able to.
Okay, so stop right there. Stop right there. See, that's the other half of
that shit.
But that's the other half of that problem, right? Put them out of a job and put it on the American people.
Exactly.
Well, so
there we go again.
The problem with putting them out of a job is the system that we have. We can't vote people out. We have to vote people in and displace them.
So you don't. So don't play the system.
We don't have a no confidence voting.
Take the system out. Take it out.
But but for me, Jesse, just to say, but then change the system and take them out. Like that is the same thing as like when my brother tells me, well, you can't vote third party. If you're going to vote third party, then you need to change the system first. Okay. Well, what the fuck do you think voting third party does? And so you can't just change the system. You have to start somewhere to change the system.
No,
you need enough people in place to say, I don't care about my salary, so therefore we're going to make drastic changes to make everything different now.
Okay, but
otherwise, the only other way, Jesse, and you know and I know it, is violent.
No, but you forget it. Yeah. You forget your history. That the very document that we've all spewed about, the very document that our current system is built off of, was built by a bunch of guys who said, fuck your system, we're going to make our own. Is that not what happened?
It is, but they didn't have like drone strikes back then, man.
No, but they had kings and they had, but the threat is always there. It's just the technology changes.
True, it just gets bigger and scarier.
Right.
But
the thing is that people forget the power of mass, right? You're talking about the 1%. You're right. Good point. 1% that runs politics, the 1% that runs this.
Million people.
That they could go ahead, shoot 300 million of them.
No. That's all of us, buddy.
No. I'm just saying, go ahead. Then who the fuck are you gonna run? Who's gonna pay your taxes? Who's gonna, You know what I mean?
Who's gonna flip that cheeseburger?
Exactly. It's that ultimate act of passiveness. I don't want to play your game no more. I don't want to participate in your system. I'm gonna grab a bunch of people that think like me, and we're gonna make the system different. We're going to change the system.
As long as it's active, then I think any action taken to try to change the system is a good action taken. That's how I feel about it. As long as it's active and hopefully not detrimental to other people's lives, like murder. I'm not cool with that. But any action taken, I'm cool. If you think that not voting is gonna somehow change the world, I mean, I'd love for you to explain that to me, but boycotting the vote still leaves like a handful, a dozen of people that are living in like nursing homes that are still
because you still haven't changed the system. You're still playing the system. Voting is this.
Yeah, by not engaging in the system, you're actively deciding not to still play the system game because the system actually wants you to not engage.
Right. That's
now.
why.
So if you engage in the system, that's actually against the system.
Look at Georgia.
Yep.
Right. Actually, your own state, Mr. Cheney. You've read about that, right? Yeah. They just purged a whole bunch of voters. So that literally means if not voting was going to hurt the Republicans, why then would they try to make sure that a ton of people can't vote?
Okay, so let me just throw this. We're playing the thought game. I want to throw a little thought thing. You don't got to answer right now. By all means, think about it, and we'll discuss it at a later time. But this is what I want you to think about it, right? What if we decided to go Starship Troopers? Right, Chris?
I love this. I just talked about this with my girlfriend the other night.
Okay. So, Josh, you and all of your fellow veterans, right? You've served for this country. You've bled for this country, right? What if we gave you guys the power? You're now the Congress. You're now the Senate. You're now, and you can decide whether or not to have a president. But you guys now run the system. The system belongs to you.
Ooh, that's a spin I wasn't expecting there, Jess. Yes. So inevitably, you're saying that the military is going to control?
I don't.
Not the military. No, not military. Veterans. You cannot be an active service member. Okay. If you're actively in the military, then you're still part of that
only
system.
Vets can rule.
Only veterans.
I don't know. I do and don't like that. I do and don't. So here's the thing. I like the idea of people who are in office have served in the military at some point, so they understand what it is to make that sacrifice. But I also, the current system that we still have a lot of people that go to war or go to jail that have either been products of the system or are currently still in the system.
No.
And so that's not really. And so we need.
I'm giving you the ability and the magical wand, but it's only the veterans, right? People that have served. You get to decide how the system runs. Either it continues the way it is,
Yeah, that's true.
or you guys change it.
Yeah.
Now,
I think that would be. There's a lot of knuckle draggers that I served with, and I was much different than I was. So I don't know, man. That's hard. I'd be interested
That's
in
a really good
looking
thought.
at the research of that idea.
That's a great.
because
It
the reason I say that is you guys have been fucked by the system. You guys served the system.
Yeah.
Right? Some people, hey, I see the commercial for the asshole for the Air Force all the time about how he says, I'd go back and tell myself as a younger self, strap in, you're in for a hell of an adventure. Yeah. Well, that's fucking great because you didn't get shot at in fucking 3 different wars, you dumbass.
Right.
But my point being, right, you take a veteran who's actually now out of that system and you saw what you fought for, you know what you bled for. Was it worth what you did? That's the system. That's the question. Do you change the system, or do you leave the system as it is, knowing
have
what's
like an
done?
assessment every decade or every
Yeah. But think about it. That gives. How about all these vets that are now homeless? How do you think they're going to vote? They're not going to vote to keep the system as it is. Why not?
No.
Well, in a lot of cases, they wouldn't be able to vote because they don't have a physical address. So that's actually what's going on right now in many indigenous areas, where they say that since you don't have a physical property address, you have to have a P.O. box.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, if you only have a P.O. box, you can't get a voter ID.
So
with
the magic wand that I'm giving you, right? Roughly, what are their vet-wise? There's probably, 300,000 vets?
I don't know, dude. I have to look that up.
Maybe.
I would think more than that.
Okay.
Actually, but
all right.
I don't know.
So then what we do is we do gatherings of 80,000 vets because you can count 80,000 of anything, right? Now you guys and those 80,000 groups have the voice and have the option, and yours is the only ones that fucking matter. You get the vote to keep the system as it is and take control of that system, or to kill the system as we know it and come up with something new. That is a scenario.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thought experiment, and again, I like the value of thought experiments because they kind of help train you in much the way that exercise trains your body, and it's a great way to help how to think, which is really the biggest, I think, flaw in our current education system is that we often take away how to think and we replace it with a what to think.
Yeah,
and
no critical thinking skills.
Ooh, I like the way you just put that.
Yeah, and so it's this idea of, the parable of you teach a man to fish, or you give a man a fish versus teach a man a fish. You give a man what to think versus you teach a man to think, right?
If you teach a man to look to these 3 companies to buy their fish, then you'll have a customer for life.
I don't know. I had to teach all of my kids critical thinking away from school because school wasn't teaching critical thinking, even in math.
Yeah, school's not meant to. So this is even if I don't win my my election, just running for school board, hopefully I can influence the way that we have these critical thinking skills. But we talked about changing the world, whether it's through voting or whatever. With the current Mia Love stuff, I've got you guys probably read the new press release that I have. I've gone out and gave about 30 of them to some people at the Unitarian Church that I go to that I know that like one of the guys is actually a pediatrician to my lawyer. He didn't know. My lawyer obviously wouldn't tell him that I go there, and so I just started talking to him, and he's like, "Oh, actually, I was this guy's pediatrician." So there's definitely emotional connections that I can find. These are people that are very well connected to the community, and so I'm hoping to get some exposure on this to show how these very people, how they speak. If the only way that we have to affect change right now without blowing up the system and having a veteran-run system is to attack people on their speech, well, then use that very speech to their peril. And so kicking me out and citing me to criminal trespassing is absolutely a form of speech, and it's speech suppression. And so what I'm hoping is that I can get people who are as vehemently in support of the First Amendment as people who are vehemently in support of the Second Amendment. And I think that the First Amendment is far more important. And if we can't have our ideas and we are thought police, well, then that's what prevents an uprising much more than policing of guns. Because if you can't think for yourself, you would have not the presence of mind to even pick up that gun to use it against your oppressor. In fact, you use it against people who are against your oppressor quite often.
Interesting.
And again,
we have about 5 minutes left here, but I wanted to ask Jessie a question concerning the choosing not to participate in the system when it's flawed in the first place. Did you ever see the movie Brewster's Millions?
Yes.
It is one of my favorite movies only because, well, I love Richard Pryor, but also the campaign itself. The fact that he decided to run as none of the above. And it took him a little bit to try to get over the learning curve there of explaining to people, literally, don't vote for me. I want you to vote for none of the above, and I want that to be what's written there. So when I win, I don't win, and neither do these corrupt motherfuckers. You know what I say is that I want everybody to vote, and one way, at least, to get people back into the system of voting who have decided to be apathetic and walk away, if you ran a campaign of none of the above, Jesse Cheney, and you got a GoFundMe going and people donated to that, and you tried to get to make that big fucking statement, I think that would bring all those people back into the world of voting in the first place, and maybe they'll start talking to each other, and maybe we can make a difference. What do you think?
But the problem is,
I just want to let you know.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
Take care, Josh.
The problem with that idea is this, is people do remember. People have a memory. It doesn't matter. They stopped voting for a specific reason. That reason is it didn't matter what they voted. The person they put in office is a single individual.
Right. Well, and what I said before,
that can be
they're lacking.
Right, but they can be corrupted and be taken out, shot, campaign smeared. It doesn't matter. But you're just stealing the system. The system is what is the problem, because we have a lot of people. You're distilling it down into people that or numbers that can be easily controlled by the rich and the wealthy. That's all it is.
Well, I think that we need more parity and not less of the system that sucks, because the best way to expose that is, like the great Jon Stewart pointed out. What Jon Stewart showed us was that the more you get people to laugh at the shit that's real, that sucks, that ought to be changed, the bigger chance you have of really scaring the crap out of those people. And they can't own that space because they can't make fun of themselves to the point where we decide we're not going to get rid of it. So really parodying the system is the best way, in my opinion right now, to get people who are not active and involved more active and more involved. And I don't mean somebody making a Trump statement every single week on Saturday Night Live. That's not parodying the system.
No.
You know what I'm saying? It's calling out these newscasters when they're completely full of shit and they're too embarrassed to say it themselves, or they say so like on a Friday night or in the third page.
Well, but then you get that whole fake news, alternative facts, alternate facts. But then again, because that's language now, right? And we've been taught that you can't call someone a bald-faced liar when you know they fucking lied to you, because you might offend them.
Absolutely.
So, like I said, so.
Or a fucking liar, right, Jess?
Or a fucking idiot. Yes.
Fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Well, you fucking idiot. That is what we have for today.
Wow, that was just all over the place.
So. Oh, yeah, but it's cool. So Roseanne is barred.
Correct.
Instead of
exactly.
destroying.
Come at me, we'll talk about it.
Jess, you take care, sir.
All right, sir. Talk to you later.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Go ahead, Corey.
No, it's Jessie, but...
Holy shit. Guess what, guys?
What?
I don't think I recorded the record button right now. We are recording, and I'll edit out whatever the hell it is we say that we don't want to. As you can see, it says recording. Okay. God fucking damn it. Anyway, and I'll add all that to the end, too.
Some context of why we're all fucking cussing. So, okay, so going back to what we were talking about, whether it's there or...
Hit record now, even though we haven't started. We are recording. Oh shit. Did you hear me?
No.
Oh, okay. I was just saying I'm still kicking myself because we lost all the stuff that Corey said.
Oh, I know.
It was good. I'd send him a link anyway, but I don't think he's coming back. Maybe Jess will be a benevolent king.
But see, that's the thing is I would not.
Because there's a difference between a living wage and a retirement wage, right?
No, exactly. Only the top 1% get what you just said.